cannabis, now iboga and 5-MeO.
Yeah.
But maybe you could just talk a little bit about that trip, and I guess you guys have another one coming up. But what was that like?
Yeah, so that all kind of happened, and I knew I was either completely crazy or this was all happening by divine providence. Invitation to participate and go to Crossroads and check out their therapy came up right before Peru. So a couple weeks before Peru, I did a 3-day ceremony in the U.S. with this first-time war vet. Told you delved into all those fears, and then was invited to Crossroads basically a week before Peru to do ibogaine and 5-MeO DMT, and I volunteered to kind of be a military guinea pig where they did brain scans on me on either side. So I was fasting from any kind of substances, even coffee, any kind of even my normal daily supplements I was taking, and the ibogaine, and I mean, I knew ibogaine could be used for addiction. I knew that, and I knew that a long time ago, and I'd never taken it until Crossroads. But I had no idea that it could be used for trauma, that it could be used for things as, eating disorder, other, kind of compulsive disorders, and that you could get the sort of brain healing from it. And so I went down there, and that's how I hooked up with Charles Shaw, our filmmaker. He was filming a documentary for Crossroads, and we met and kind of hit it off. And then I remember saying to him, as he interviewed me a little bit, checking each other through that method. And then when we were done, he said, we were just talking, chatting, and I said, so do you want to go to Peru? And he said, what are the dates? And within a couple of minutes, he decided to join us in Peru. And so the ibogaine itself is just so different than any other visionary plant medicine I've taken. And those, you feel them across your entire body. With this ibogaine, it was really in my brain. I was really feeling it in my brain. And of course, I remember coming up on it, and like, did they give me enough? What's this supposed to feel like? How come this isn't as strong as I thought it was going to be? And I remember when it finally, kicked in, and I was like, okay, the visions start, and I'm like, wow, and I feel the intensity, and you've got this ataxia, right, where if you move, you don't feel good. You feel like you're have a hangover, or you're like have the flu. But if you don't move, and you're okay, which in a way is, as you have that in ayahuasca at a certain point where you're not, if you're under the effects of medicine, you might not be wanting to move around a lot because you don't feel that good. But I'm like, wow, when it finally kicked in, I was like, wow, this is totally strong, this is totally real, and it's totally different from anything I've ever done. And I was hearing conversations that weren't there. I was seeing things that weren't there with my eyes closed, and then the visions really started to take off. And then all of a sudden, the first real vision I got was my father's face, like right in front of me. And I'm thinking like, Buiti, I'm like, this is why they take this. This is like, my dad's still alive, but to talk with the ancestors, to connect with your family. And then he smiled at me. And I've been having a lot of issues with my parents in the past couple of years. Like, wow, this is really a good sign. And then I did bring a specific intention to the ibogaine, which was this thing of my sister dying when I was 4 months old. She was 1.5 years. It's like the central family drama in my family that my parents haven't yet resolved for. And I wanted to understand how to connect with her. So I ended up, it was my intention as well to work on family stuff, which I did a lot of that. I worked on a lot of family issues. With my sister, I looked up in the huge dome that we were in, and I saw like the hatch for a submarine or a ship, where the round hatch, which was totally unlocked, and I realized, okay, this is how I can connect with her. It's a one-way ticket, and I can go through that door if I want to, but I have a life, I have a wife and kids, I have friends. I'm not looking to go through that door, but I got it. So that whole question mark of how do I relate to this person was answered for me, and I remember looking back up, and it was still there. It was like, it's there, it's open for you, it's totally your choice. And I'm like, okay, I'm not ready to do that. And then the other big thing I worked on, which I didn't even know, was I'd traumatized myself flying in Panama, like doing this, illegal maneuver. in a Black Hawk, properly equipped, you can do barrel rolls with a semi-rigid rotor, and you can do an inside loop. In our Blackhawks, they said you can't 60 degrees left to right, 60 degrees up and down. We're flying down there in Panama with this guy I flew a lot with, over by the jungle school, down this like beautiful river, having like Vietnam flashbacks, flying 120 miles an hour right on top of the water. And this guy I was flying with, he's like, "Do you want to do a 90-degree turn?" And I'm like, "Sure, let's do this." So I fly at least 100 miles an hour, maybe 100 to 120, cruising down this river, and it has this perfect left-hand turn. And I remember just, and he was, of course, coaching me. He'd done this before, telling me, and I went through that and pulled back, on the cyclic and pulled all the power in, and then just dumped that thing 90 degrees over. And unlike a jet where you get lift from, your thrust, in a helicopter, when you turn a thing sideways, all of your lift is going this way. Yeah, exactly, so you're falling. That's why when you do this barrel roll, you actually kind of fall, or you do the inside loop, you actually kind of fall. So, and I rolled that thing around, got it, lined up with the 90, and then pulled it back in, and then pulled all the power that was out there, and all the lights are just, going off, and buzzers and sounds, and I pull out of it, and I was like, wow. So that was, I'm glad at that time I was glad I did it, and but I didn't know that I'd actually traumatized myself and under the ibogaine and worked on that and some of the other trauma just from flying, which is really every time you took off, wartime or not, people could die. And then you're flying with maybe 8 other aircraft that are full of 10 other people, and you're in formation. So just dealing with that intensity of that, the ibogaine really helped me. And but it was just, it lasts for a long time. The primary phase seems kind of more visual, and then it goes to more of a contemplative, meditative, internal, kind of self-dialogue. And yeah, and then, you sort of, the next morning, you're like, I'm still on this stuff. It's still going. And, then you have that slow, integration. Then moving on to the toad, man.
Well, before we get to the toad, once you do come out of it the next day,